Hey kids, welcome to section 9.3, closing costs. Today we're going to calculate the total closing costs. And the big question for today is, who makes money when you buy a home? Well, when you buy a home, the person selling the home gets some money, and the real estate agents get some money, and the bankers get some money, and the people who prepare documents get money, and everybody gets money except for the person buying the house. But everybody else gets money. So when you purchase a home, you may have a closing. The closing is usually a meeting attended by the buyer, the seller, their lawyers, the mortgage lender, and the real estate agents. At the meeting, the buyer and seller sign a number of documents to formalize the mortgage, distribute funds, and transfer ownership of the home to the buyer. Closing costs are fees associated with purchasing a real estate property. They are incurred by either the seller or the buyer per agreement. Closing costs vary depending on the location of the property, the type of property bought, and the type of loan that may be involved. Taxes are another cost to consider during closing. So closing costs can include fees for the property survey, the loan application, document preparation, and these things called points. Illinois has one of the highest closing costs in the nation after taxes are factored in. In Illinois, the average closing costs are $5,807 after taxes. So if you look at this table, this is one example of one type of closing costs. You have application fees, $252, a credit check for $65. Points are 2% of the mortgage. Appraisal fees, title search, title insurance, inspection, attorney fees, documentation stamp and processing fees. Notice that 3 of these depend on how big the mortgage is, and the other 7 are flat fees, no matter how expensive or reasonable the price of the house is. And to find the total of the closing costs, you're just going to add up or find the sum of all the different closing costs. And like I said before, this chart is just one for us to work with. Each bank, each lending institution has a different amount for their closing costs, and it can vary from place to place. So here's some examples. Number 1, State Bank has approved a mortgage loan for Trisha and Bryce Hallett at an annual interest rate of 8% for 25 years. The home selling price was $149,000. They did not put any money down for a down payment. State Bank will allow them to finance the closing costs as part of the mortgage. That means that all of the different fees that they have to pay at the closing, they don't have to, get their checkbook out and pay the lawyer and pay the real estate agent and pay the bank. Like, they don't have to do that. The bank will pay them, and then all of those fees will go back into their mortgage and the money that they're borrowing. So to find the total closing costs for Part A, we're going to refer back to this table. And notice that in the table, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that are all flat fees, no matter what the house is. So if we add all of those up, that gives us $2,064. If I look at the percentages, 2%, 0.3%, and 1.1%, that gives me 3.4% of the mortgage. So we're going to kind of use those so we don't have to add them every single time. We're going to use those consistently. So 2064 and 3.4%. I'm going to just write those right here at the top. 2064 and 3.4%. Okay, so to find our closing costs, we're going to add 2,064 with 3.4% of the mortgage. So take the mortgage amount, 149,000, and multiply by 0.034. So if I do that, I'm going to leave the 2064 alone. And I'm going to multiply 149,000 times 0.034. That gives me 5,066. If I add these together, $7,130. So that's what Trisha and Bryce have to pay the lawyers, the real estate agents, the person who did the inspection, the person who prepared the paperwork, all that stuff all gets thrown in together. Now, part B says, what is the actual amount financed with the mortgage? So to find the actual amount financed, we're going to take the mortgage amount, $149,000, and we're going to add these closing costs, $7,130. This means that the actual amount borrowed from the bank is $156,130. So this is then what we would break up into monthly payments from Section 9.2, so that we could then see how much interest we pay over the years. Okay, number 2, Jack and Dinah King purchased a home with a mortgage loan of $420,000. Calculate the total amount of the mortgage if the closing costs are financed. So make sure you really read the questions carefully. Sometimes it'll say, what are the closing costs? And sometimes it'll say, what is the mortgage if you include the closing costs? So read carefully. Okay, so I need to figure out what the closing costs are. So we're going to do $2,064 plus the price of the house, $420,000 times 0.034. So that's going to give me 2,064 plus. If I multiply these two values together, I get 14,280. So I get closing costs of 16,344. These are our closing costs. But that's not the answer to the question, because the question wants the total amount of the mortgage if the closing costs are financed. So we need to take the price of the mortgage, $420,000, and we need to add the closing costs, $16,344. This means that I'm totally borrowing $436,344. Very good. All right. Let's go to problem number 3. This one has some review to it, but also some new stuff. So number 3 says Carly has been granted a mortgage loan at an annual interest rate of 5.5% for 15 years. The home has a selling price of $185,000 and they need a 15% down payment. The bank will allow them to finance the closing costs as part of the mortgage. So part A says, what is the amount of the down payment? Remember, the down payment is when you take the price of the house and multiply by the percentage of the down payment. So $185,000 is the price of the house, multiply it by 15% as a decimal, and that gives you a down payment of $27,750. That's how much Carly has to give when she purchases her house. If I'm looking at part B, what is the mortgage amount? Since we have a down payment, we need to subtract that off the price of the house. So $185,000 subtract $27,750. That means my mortgage is going to be $157,250. So this is how much the house is actually going to be costing us after we've given the down payment. To find the total closing costs, I'm going to do $2,064 plus the price of the mortgage, $157,250 times 3.4% or 0.034. I'm going to leave the $2,064 alone. When I multiply these two numbers together, I get $5,346.50. If I add them together, I get closing costs of $7,410.50. So this is the money that's going to go to the lawyers, to the real estate agents, to the bank, and to anybody else that helped. Then finally, to find the total amount financed, since the financing includes the closing costs, I'm going to take the price of the mortgage, $157,250, and I'm going to add the closing costs, $7,410.50. And so this is going to give me a grand total borrowed of $164,660.50. So notice they give you extra information in this problem. That's about the interest rates. I only need that information if we were going to, say, calculate what the monthly payment is. Then I would need to know what the interest rate is and the length of the loan. All right. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. And as always, keep calm and keep trucking.